Thank you, Gina. I'm going to introduce Jim right now. Jim.
I'm Jim. I'm a junkie. And they said to talk about change, and I've seen a lot of that. I don't know. You know, we've all used the serenity prayer a lot, and I know we have. You know, somebody gave it to me and said, "Use it; it works." And so it's something that I can use today, so I don't have to use chemicals. Part of the serenity prayer talks about change, and you know, I don't know where to begin. You know, I'm not prepared tonight. As prepared as I always am, I guess. I've been thinking about the word change a lot, but I'm not organized. I haven't tried to put those thoughts in order, so I'm going to ramble because that's my nature, and I'm a wanderer, you know, one of those people that likes the highways and the byways and the streets. You know, for those of you that are from out of town, welcome to Main Street, USA, you know. We're street people, a lot of us, and a lot of us aren't. I'm going to try tonight, you know, to clean up my language a little bit for those that would otherwise be offended. That's not really me either, you know. Sometimes if I slip, forgive me, you know. If I slip, forgive me. I think we all need to keep trying to change. I've changed tremendously. I don't like to talk too much about what it was like, you know? We all know how to use, and I don't like to talk about what it was like. I'm afraid somebody's going to turn me on to some crazy shit that I never tried before, and I might want to, you know, scope it out. But I know how to use, and I know how to abuse. I still do use way too much caffeine and nicotine, you know, and sometimes I suffer from it. I don't know whether it's nervousness or whether it's, you know, too much caffeine and nicotine, but I've got one of those ungodly headaches, you know, combination, I don't know. I'll try to go back and talk about what I was like. My earliest recollection was, you know, my very first memory was burying an old dog, you know, and something had been taken away from me, and I suffered that loss, and that stuck in my mind. And one of my next memories was a fear of doing something, a fear of a change. I was, you know, trucking across the street to school, and I'd never crossed the street, and I'd never gone to school, and I was scared. And in that school, that first year, I had to be in a play, and it was some kind of a freaky, you know, I was a fly, and they dressed me up in some black leotards and some wings, and I'm this fly, and I blew the whole thing because I freaked, you know, and I stood there, and I couldn't do my part. I couldn't walk across the stage and go, bzzz, you know, and. You know, a couple of years later, I'd gotten into using some chemicals a little bit. Sounds crazy, but you know, by the time I was in a second and third grade in school, I'd played enough emotional games in my little world, the family, where I had my mother conned into bringing me a cup of coffee to get me up in the morning. You know, she did that for the old man, and she did that for me. And I started depending on mood-changing chemicals. So I've still got that habit, and I'll probably die with that habit, but I won't die with maybe some other habits. I'm talking about habits and changing habits, you know. It's not just, we've all got habits, you know. Some are good and some are bad. Bad for us, bad for me. Some habits I have are bad for me. They ruin my image, or they put wedges between me and people that I need to know and want to know. Those are the things that I need to learn how to change, you know. I may be not sticking a rig in my arm today, but I've got some other habits that I still need to work on, you know. And I don't always recognize those things without somebody's help, you know. This guy out here who doesn't know me and has the courage to walk up to me and tell me how he perceives me. He's taking a risk. He's taking the risk that I won't like him to tell me some things about me that he sees that maybe he doesn't like, you know. And that's the kind of love that I've learned around this program. I got into harder chemicals early in life because they relieved some of the discomforts in life. When I'd get in front of a group of people, like in high school, you know, I'd hyperventilate and I'd lose my voice, you know. When I was a kid, I was a nervous person, and I chewed my fingernails to the first knuckle, and I ate the collars off my shirt, and my mother used to just, you know, frantic, patching shirt collars, you know. And I switched habits, you know. Switched addiction. I found a chemical that would relieve the tension so I didn't have to chew my shirt collars, and I was okay, as long as I had the chemical. And I studied the chemicals. They fascinated me, you know. I grew up in an era where you could move the tube, and if you can't shit, try X-Lax. Our brand is better, you know. It didn't matter, you know. I had it in my head that there were miracle drugs out there, and I was looking for a miracle. I don't know, I used for a good number of years booze, and you know how I found those drugs? People turning me on to something that was good, something that they liked, you know. One guy would say, "Wow, man, ain't you tired of them headaches from all that juice?" Yeah. You say, "Well, try some of this, man. It's good shit." And so he turned me on to what was working for him, and it worked for a while, and I felt okay for a while, and I used those chemicals to take me from where I was to where I thought I wanted to be, to give me courage, to whatever, you know. And I found that different chemicals reacted differently, you know. I could get courage out of a bottle of beer. I could get courage out of a little bit of speed, you know, when I was feeling down, really down, and wanted to run around and do something crazy and didn't feel like I fit and wasn't feeling too swift. Do a little speed, and I'd get on an ego trip and some speed runs, and I was cool. But it backfired, and I don't know. Every time I try something new, I'd like it too. But then there was the fear, you know, of coming down and not being able to find it. And I found cheap thrills. And I liked a lot of the cheap thrills, because when there's no Class A's on the street and I need something, I'd bag up some shoe dye. And I'd turn up an aerosol spray can, and I'd go to the drugstore and I'd boost what I could find. And if it worked, fine, and if it didn't, fine. If I didn't know about it, shit, I'd do it anyway, because if it killed me, I was better off dead, because that's how I felt. And the world was better off without me. And I got onto some shit one time, and I was in the service, and I was stationed at Fort Riley, and I got onto some shit. And I was screwing up, because I had a wife and a kid and parents and sisters and family, and I was feeling really, really, you know, I feel like I should be doing something. I feel like I'm not being responsible. I'm not the kind of person I can be. I'm not the kind of person I want to be. I hate my guts, you know. I hate what I see in a mirror. And I wanted to change, but I didn't know how. Anyway, I kept getting loaded, and I got onto some got onto some opiates, and I'd been, just mixing everything I could get. Payday in the Army, you got to go out and do what's there. And I started out with, scotch and whatever, and I ended up finally doing, I don't know, Guy'd hand me a cap of peyote, and I'd do that, and I'd walk down the hall and stumble around the barracks and do a bottle of wine and do a Palmer with somebody. And I was laying on a bunk, and I wanted to get inside my head. What makes me tick? If I can get inside my head and find out what makes me tick, maybe I can do something to clean up my act and be somebody different, A friend of mine at about that time, we had a saying, we'd run around and we'd act crazy for a while, and we'd just get fried, and he'd say, hey man, why don't you and I clean up and be somebody? And we would for a week or 10 days, and then he'd say, wow man, this sucks, let's get loaded and be somebody different. And so we do that. So, anyway, when I was into that trip, trying to find out what was in my head, I was kind of, getting into it. And I got into my head, and I could see what was going on in my head, the physical things. I had thoughts running through my mind like, the brain is an organ, and the eyes are just organs, and you don't need eyes to see what's going on in your body. Your brain knows. And I was into that sort of a trip. And I was checking out everything, grooving on it. Checking out my heart, slowing it down, speeding it up, really getting into it. And thought flashed through my mind, hey, if you can get inside your mind, you can get out of your body. And I stepped out of my body and trucked around that way for a while. Being outside of my body was freaky, and it scared the shit out of me. And that old fear was back again. But the thought that was running through my head was, hey man, you're dead. And you're too fucking young to die. And there's a lot of things in this world you ain't done yet that you want to do. And I was seeing things like, like to build a scooter, and I'd like to, jump out of an airplane, and I'd like to get to know some more people, and, a lot of neat things in the world that I hadn't done yet. And I floated back into my body, and I guess it's, sometimes I like to think of it as a spiritual experience, and other times maybe it was just another fucking drug experience. I don't know. But I was uncomfortable after that using. But I was addicted. And there was no way I could quit. And as much as I wanted to quit, I knew. Because people would come to me and they'd say, hey man, why don't you clean up your act? And I'd say, I gotta have it, that's all, And I was running around the streets, and I just knew in my guts that, I was one of those people that was going to die on the street with a rig in my arm. Because that's what happened to junkies. They died on the street with a rig in their arm. And I knew about the jails. I made the jails. And the insane asylums, I didn't know about those. I was afraid of them. It was the fear of insane asylums and mental hospitals that kept me from going and asking somebody for help, because they probably put me there. And I knew what was going on in my head. I knew I was insane. There wasn't anything I could do about it. I had another spiritual experience, after several more jails and several months of just running around and just, kind of surviving. Trying to kill myself on one hand and trying to survive on the other. There wasn't any hope left. I walked into a beer joint one night because And sitting in there, I'd had, a whole lot of juice to drink, and I'd eaten a couple inhalers, because I wanted to be a wide-awake drunk that night. Anyway, I was standing around and I was boogieing down to the music and, into this, wherever my head was at that night. And some Jesus freaks came up to me, and they said, "Hey man, if you don't change your evil drunken ways, you're going to go to hell and burn, you know that." And they started putting this rap on me. They bought me a couple of drinks and what the hell, You lose all sense of pride, So there I was, drinking with some Jesus freaks. Now I gave up on God along with Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, There was no God. I didn't want to hear that shit. But while they were rapping with me, I was pretty, just started kind of nodding at the table, and then they stuffed my back pockets full of matches, and they torched them, Jesus was good people, love them. And this was in Salina, Kansas, nice town. And I was so blown away that I couldn't defend myself, I was, I ceased fighting people, I guess, I wanted to kill, but I was so humiliated that I, because when I stood up, I'd fall on my face and I'd lost my shoes someplace, and anyway, through my tears, I managed to go to the men's room and put the flames out, and I left there. And I got in my car, and the old truck I was driving, and I took off, and I ran some people off the interstate. I was headed the wrong way on the interstate, and I ran some people off the road, and I got busted again. 4th DWI in the state of Kansas. And because no matter what you're doing, if you got an open container, they jump at the most obvious, So you carried a brew around with you, no matter what else you was doing. And a public drunk or a DWI was cheaper than 5 years. That's insane thinking, isn't it? Anyway, this particular trip to jail, I jonesed hard, because I didn't get anything in jail. A lot of times there's some shit in the cell, This is the first time I'd been in jail where there wasn't some shit in there. And, but there wasn't any in Salina jail, and after 5 days without eating, because I couldn't keep anything down, and I was shaking so bad I didn't want anything to eat. After 5 days, I finally got a cup of coffee down, and I was ready to pray to a God I didn't believe in, and I didn't believe in God, and I didn't know how to pray. And I probably said the most honest prayer I've ever said in my life, and that was, if there is a God. I don't want to make any deals this time. I just want some help, And I kind of tried to deal with God in a search for God before, but it, hadn't worked. I don't know, some guy came up and bailed me out of jail, Judge gave me 90 days and took my license for 6 months and a $100 fine. And after 10 days, this dude, who was a total stranger, and he walked up and he offered me, a chance to get out. And he talked with me for a half hour, and the hassle was, I didn't want out, because I was clean, and I didn't want out of that goddamn jail, because if they cut me loose, I was going to get fucked up again. And he said, try. Okay, so I said, I'll go to your program and I'll try. That was the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they saved my ass. you know. But you know, the first few days in a meeting, you kind of sit around and you don't say anything, and the streetwise people scope things out. And they don't commit themselves. They're on the fringes. And I kept my mouth shut. And I'd say my name, and that was all I'd say. Name, rank, and serial number. Army taught me good, you know. So, name, rank, and serial number it was. And it, you know, it didn't take me long to figure out you didn't talk about drugs there. So I didn't talk about anything but juice. And I got some insight into the program. I got my feet wet. I did what they told me. They offered me hope. For the first time in my life, there was hope for me. I didn't agree with everything I heard. I didn't like everything I heard. But I liked enough of it that I got a little bit of hope. And so there was a change in my life. And I didn't always want to go to meetings, but I went to meetings. My parole said 4 a week, and by God, I was going to go to 4 a week. My parole was for a year, and if I bitched it up, I did the 90 plus a year for parole violation. You know. So I was trying, you know. Wasn't necessarily all that willing, but I was trying. And I tried it, you know, one day at a time. There were days I'd shake, and there were days I'd hallucinate. A lot of days I'd hallucinate. And I talked to some people about I didn't believe in God, and they said it don't matter. Just say please in the morning and say thanks at night, and keep it simple, stupid, and, you know, I did. And I was, you know, wondering if I could get honest enough to talk about drugs, because it was, you know, the thing that was eating in the back of my mind was, you know, you've done other chemicals, you know. There were a few people that had mentioned it, but they, you know, they felt uncomfortable. You know, you read body language, you know, if a person's uncomfortable, and they were uncomfortable. And some of the AA members that I wanted the respect of and wanted to like me, you know, said some unkind things to those people that mentioned drugs. And it hurt. And I'd been clean, you know, a few months. And they got a treatment center started in Salina. And some people put together an NA meeting, and nobody knew what it was, but somewhere they got a hold of a white book, and they started an NA meeting there. And I went to that meeting because I'd heard about it. And I walked in there and I started talking about some of the things that I hadn't talked about. I told more of my story than I'm going to tell tonight. And it felt like you know, tons were lifted off my shoulders. I didn't have that weight. And it was one guy and there were 7 chicks. God, there were some good-looking ladies there. And so, you know, there was an attraction in that NA program. Not so much competition. So I went back. You know, and after going back a few times, they did things a little differently, and they talked my language. So, another small change in my life. It's turned out to be the biggest change in my life. I came home, you know. AA saved my ass. NA taught me how to live and how to love. You know, these people helped me get rid of that monkey, and that's what it was that was on my back. That's the weight I felt. And with that weight gone, you know, they opened up my heart so I could love people. And they let my soul breathe, you know. They let me be myself. All of me, you know, not just part of me, not just what they wanted to see, but all of me. And you know, I felt so good about that. that meeting, that when I went to Hutchinson and we tried to start another meeting in Hutch, and it folded because, you know, junkies are junkies, and sometimes you got an obsession that's stronger than your willingness to stay clean or your willingness to try. And I understood that, but it hurt. And I had an ego problem, and I still do, and had some other problems. And so I moved to Waterloo, Iowa, and because I wasn't, you know, some things came down in Hutch. A chick that was living with us that came off the street got wasted, you know. And the man was camping on my door, and it was just the same old shit again, you know. And I wanted to get away. We're trying to help this chick, and she gets blown away, and I was having a lot of trouble with God. And about that time, I went to some AA meetings, and the people said, "You really fucked up, Jim, you know. You really fucked up. You're sick. Why don't you go to treatment?" You know. Well, I'd asked about going to treatment, and the people said, "You're doing okay. And besides that, the treatment centers are full of alcoholics that really need it." You know? So I didn't get to go to treatment. But I had this thing for NA. I had this white book, and I had this thing, and I thought, well, goddamn, there's some junkies out there. I know they're out there, man. I used to use with these people, you know, and I love them. They're my kind of people. I care about these people. You know, I'd learned a little bit about love from an old dog. You know, I'd go home and beat him. I'd take all my daily frustrations out on me, and he'd come up and he'd lay his head in my lap, and, you know. An old dog had taught me a little bit about love, and I'd changed again. But I had this thing. I wanted to see other junkies get a chance. And I went back to Waterloo, Iowa, where I'd grown up. And I went to the drug council, you know, a decent drug council. I thought, wow, Waterloo's really progressive. They got a drug council here, you know. Yeah. Wrong again. They had a drug council. And one dude was trying to score some funds, and I don't know, and they were keeping records on everybody that walked in, and the courts were pushing people in and counseling, and you know, hey, I didn't want somebody writing down on paper and keeping records what I told some counselor, you know. I'd been around AA enough that I trusted the people there a little with my story, but I didn't want it put down on paper and kept in a courthouse some damn place, you know. They had enough records on this cowboy. They didn't need any more. I didn't know whether they were going to turn this shit over the FBI or what.
Please turn your tape. Do not rewind. Turn your tape and continue on side 2.
The FBI or what, you know? I might want to go out and get loaded again, you know. So anyway, some things happened in the drug council in Waterloo, and I got my heart broke again. Really broke. The guy that was a counselor there was, you know, trying to score on all the female clients that came in, and he didn't give a shit about the dudes that came in. And it was a crazy thing. Things have changed in Waterloo. Have really changed in that city. I felt unwanted in the AA program there too. There were a few, I could count them on one hand, that would listen to me. And I read their body language, and it said, I'm helpless. I don't know what to say to you, man. So a friend of mine says, why don't you come to Lincoln, man? We'll build a scooter, and there's some clean people here, you know, and drug addicts are accepted in Lincoln, and you can go to AA meetings and you can talk junk and they don't throw you out. And I said, all right. And he said, and there's 6 people there, 6 people that want to get an NA meeting started. And I talked to them and they were flakes, you know. They were really flakes. You know, I had a couple years sobriety then, and they were flaky. But, and I said, you know, I've tried to work with junkies before, and I'll come to the meetings, but this time you're going to call California, and this time you're going to get the starter packet, you know. I'm not doing shit, you know. If you want an NA meeting, I'll come and I'll talk at the meetings. I'll be there occasionally, but don't count on me. And these 5 or 6 people, they put a program together, an NA meeting. And somehow they tried to put together, you know, out of their pockets they heard about conferences and conventions, and they dug down, and some of them went to conferences and conventions and brought back some ideas to us. You know, some of those ideas were love and understanding, you know. They were warmer. They were more real after having gone to something like that. Sincerity, and, you know, I wasn't going to get involved, you know. I was going to sit on the sidelines. And every time I'd find somebody at an AA meeting that said, you know, I'm having some trouble with drugs, and I'd run over and talk to him. And when one of the people in the program would go get loaded and want to come back, and he'd be sitting on my doorstep, jonesing and saying, hey man, can I crash for a couple of days, you know? I don't know whether I want to stay clean this time or not, but I got to clean up now for a few days anyway. And I'd almost get my own ass thrown out of the house, you know. My old lady saying, wow, these people all the time coming over here, and we can't even afford to feed ourselves, and here you are feeding these goddamn junkies, you know. And they're crashed out all over the couch, and I don't blame her, you know. But somehow I felt for those guys. I knew what they were going through, you know. Nobody had to tell me what they were going through. The words can't describe what they were going through. I just knew, you know. I could look at the expression on his face, and when he say something as stupid as, hey man, you know, I knew what he was saying. It wasn't hey man, it was, you know, I understood his language. And sometimes we sat around and we'd talk about, you know, the old days, what it was like shooting this and shooting that, and running here and Larimore and in Denver, and, you know, bullshit. We'd psych ourselves up, and we'd all sit around all night reminiscing about what it was like, and somebody go get loaded over it, you know. And we'd hurt for them. And we stuck together, and there was a unity there that was unlike anything else. And I felt, you know, well, we've got a group here, but where is the rest of this NA, you know? And it's all out in California, you know. You don't know how many times I've packed my bags and says, fuck it, I'm going to California where they got a program, you know. God looked after me, and I never got out of Lincoln. He kept me broke, and I'd changed. I didn't have the courage to go out there and hitchhike anymore, you know. I was unwilling. I'd gotten comfortable. Some of the creature comforts were coming back, you know. Bob was talking yesterday about paying rent. You know, he paid his rent now, stuff like that. I was beginning to get responsible. There are times I liked the changes and sometimes I didn't like the changes. And there was arguments and harsh words, and we were all looking for the same thing. We were looking for love and understanding and, you know, have our egos stroked a little bit. You know, there was something missing in Lincoln, but it was a whole lot better than what I'd had before. And then the changes were good changes. Slow changes, but good. Probably good they were slow. I couldn't have handled them all at once, you know. If I was getting clean and I'd walked into this convention, I couldn't have handled it, you know. I'd been clean for 5 years when I walked into that convention in Houston, and I couldn't handle it, you know. The old streetways were still with me so much that when some dude put his arms around me, man, he about got blasted, you know. I wasn't too sure about that shit. It's okay today, you know. I have changed. NA has changed. You know, NA in this area has changed. You know, I can go to Topeka, and Cindy and Ron got a couch, and I can go to Wichita, and there's Julie and Mark, and God, a lot of other people. You know, I can go to Omaha, and there's Beth, and where's Beth at? All right, she's so little you can't see her. I pick on Beth a lot because I love her. She's, you know, I've got 7 sisters that are all younger than myself, you know, and I don't have the warm feelings, the communication with those, you know, siblings that I have with my sisters in this program, you know. You know what I'm saying? These people are real. Beth is one of my sisters. There are times that, you know, I look at her and I think, wow, wouldn't it be neat to be that little and tiny? You wouldn't have to do half as much. You get twice as fucked up. I'd have probably just gone twice as long before I got cleaned up. I don't know. It's good to be here. You know, you know how long I've been dreaming about this? You know, me, this is selfish, I know. This is ego, I know. But I've been dreaming about this convention, where I got clean, for going on 9 years. There was, you know, in 1972, there was that group in Salina, and it folded. Some people in Wichita tried to get a group, and it folded. And the one in we tried to carry meetings to Omaha for 2 years, and it folded. And some of us carried meetings to York, Nebraska, women's state pen there, and it folded. And, you know, I've had my heart broke so much. And I don't have to have my fucking heart broke anymore, you know. NA is strong, it's alive, it's well, and people in Wichita are willing, and people from all over the world are willing in Wichita, and there are some changes taking place. There's a literature conference in Lincoln, Nebraska, starting Monday. And I'm looking forward to it. And I feel awfully inadequate, you know. I don't know what I'm going to be doing there. And I feel like, you know, it's a change. I think it's a big change, you know. We're standing on our own 2 feet. A lot of us here had to have AA hold our hand, but we're standing on our own 2 feet. And with God's help, we'll put together some kind of a book so that I got something to give this guy besides my story, which he may not be able to identify with. and a white booklet that's, sometimes as inadequate as I feel, I think we can put together a better book. We've got a lot of experience in this room. We've got a lot of strength in this room. We've got a lot of hope. There was no hope for me for a long, long time, and there's hope. There's hope not only for me, but people like me. We're not going to save them all. But Jesus, wouldn't it be nice to save those that wanted it? And I think there's a lot of them that want it. They maybe don't know they want it yet. It's up to us to carry a message, and it'd be a hell of a lot easier for me to carry a message if I had a book with a message in it. I don't know what this other man's questions are unless he asks me, and he's afraid of me, He may identify with me, but he's afraid of me. I was afraid of other people, Besides that, I'm a compulsive reader. We got any other compulsive readers in here? Yeah. If it's written, it's got to be read. I hate to write. I hate to sign my paycheck because it means pushing a pencil, But I love to read because it's a way of exchanging ideas, And I think we need this book. We've grown enough to where we've got to have something more than just word of mouth. I think it'll help strengthen us and unify us. I'll feel more independent when NA has a book of its own. And that's a change I'm looking forward to, I've been kind of serious tonight, That's okay. I've had a lot of laughs this weekend. I'm a sentimental slob, really. Sometimes I try to hide that, I wear defenses, wear scruffy clothes that keep some kinds of people away from me, or a freaky hat and that keeps others away from me. Long hair keeps others away from me. Gives me a chance to study people. I've been kind of sitting around studying some people and loving some people and watching those with the courage to break through my defenses. God, it feels good, It's been a tremendous amount of changing and growing in, I'm familiar with what goes on in Kansas and Nebraska and Iowa, because those are the 3 states I've lived in. Joe's done a tremendous thing in Waterloo. Jesus, he succeeded where I felt I failed. I gave up too soon. I gave up too soon because, my only connection with NA was a telephone line, Some of you heard me talk about Ma Bell the other night, because that was my connection. And I still use that telephone. I can call Bo and get some serenity when I'm uptight. I can call Jimmy in California, How many people in here talk to Jimmy personally?
I do.
Yeah.
All the time.
Isn't that guy dynamite? Really? He's never seen me, and he talks to me like, God, I hope I can grow up to be like Jimmy. I thought I was struggling until I talked with people like Greg, and I know Greg's been around a while, and Bobby, and these are people that came around when there was one meeting, and I hear stories like that, gives me courage to go on and keep on doing what I've been doing. Besides that, you know, I walk down the street and I count the numbers that I see on the street on the way to a meeting. Just for Chuck, sometimes I do that. That dude looks like a head, and I wonder what he's on. The son of a bitch cut me off, but, you know, probably loaded, you know. And there's some kids growing up, and I've got a boy 14 years old. I don't know whether he's tried it or not, but he doesn't obviously have a regular habit anyway. And I thank God for that. You know, this kid's 14 years old, and he's coming to NA meetings because he likes junkies. You don't know anything, you know. But he loves junkies because he's confused, mixed up kid, and he's got living problems. And I think he's looking for a program, and he's looking for some love. And there are times I don't know how to give it to him, but Sam can, and Maura can, somebody else can. Somebody else can fulfill a need in his life that I can't. And I'm grateful that they're around and willing, and that this thing has caught on, and that we're going through these changes. And they're hard, and they hurt. And we grow through pain. You know? Somebody's, you know, all of my life I've been changing. Today I'm a sum total of my knowledge and experience up to this point in time as I understand it. But sometimes I don't understand myself too well, and I need other people to help me sort that out. Thank God today I've got those people. They say one word and I feel okay, you know? They just smile and wink, and I feel, okay, it's worth living today. They call me on a telephone with a problem that's trivial to me, but important to them, and it takes my mind off my problem, and my problem don't seem as big. God's working through us, and He's working with us. Sometimes He's working on us. We got all these defects and bullshitting away and wanting to grow up. We're a bunch of kids wanting to grow up and don't know how. And we need a lot of guidance. We need a lot of help from all kinds of people, you know. We need a lot of things. And I sometimes ask myself, you know, where are we going to get these things, you know? I know it could come from God, but, you know, where are we going to get it? You know, I had an old timer tell me one time, you know, God doesn't ask our ability or our inability. He asks our availability, you know, be available. You know, when I feel inadequate, like I'm feeling, you know, already towards this literature thing, because I hate to write, you know. I'm scared about it, you know. I'm afraid a couple of people are going to get down and you know, maybe yell and scream at one another, you know. It hurts me when I see two of my friends arguing, you know. I don't want they should argue. I want they should love one another. But, you know, it's going to happen. If more people are willing to go to any length, you know. Somebody told me the lengths I'd have to go to, the pain I'd have to go through to get where I'm at today. I would not have been willing. No way would I have been willing. The gentleman upstairs only gave me in one day what I could handle in one day, and he carried me through. I still try to keep it simple, please in the morning and thanks at night. I try to be grateful, you know. When there's a bunch of shit coming down and you're halfling and trying to do something and you're flat broke and you don't know where the money's coming from and you know the guy got paid last week and he won't get off that $5 bill that you need. I've seen an awful lot of changes. I've seen people in this program love in a lot of strange ways. We're trying to get some postage for the literature conference, right? And some people with, just a few months in the program. And they went down to the blood bank, $15. $15 buys a roll of stamps, and that roll of stamps sent the flyers. If you didn't get a flyer, it's because we ran out of blood. There are people in this part of the country in the Bible Belt that are given until it hurts, and then come into a convention to feel good and enjoy it. And I'm enjoying it. I'm getting to know a lot of people that, here from out of the state, just super people. And I love you, Not for what you are, but what I am because of you. And I'm going to shut up and close with a thought, because we're here today, and today is going to change, We're going into another today. And so I'm going to leave you with a thought. And it's a short prayer. It comes from Genesis. And I, had to deal with my resentments towards Jesus freaks and Bible thumpers, but I like their prayer. May the Lord watch between thee and me while we're absent one from the other.
Thank you. That was really beautiful. Ron has some more announcements to make. And while he's walking up here this morning, he came rushing into the room and he said to me, "This is exciting, and I forgot it was my birthday." And he said, "I just remembered," he said. And I said, "Well, what did you think?" And he said, "Isn't it great to be 26 and clean and sober?" So maybe we could sing happy birthday to Ron when he comes out. Come on, Ron. Come on, Ron. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ron. Happy birthday to you.
Actually, it was 26, and I don't need a fix. I just wanted to announce that there were some people out there that were wanting to register, and I just wanted to announce that the registration will reopen in the morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, and will close tomorrow at 4 p.m. Also, at the door at the banquet meeting tomorrow night, we had planned on putting a sign that said, "Let your conscience be your guide," along with the collection basket or whatever. And I wanted to explain something because I heard a lot of flack about it right off the bat. And that's not to the people who have registered, and it's not to put a mind trip on anybody. It was only for the people that might show up after 4 o'clock. We didn't feel like, that they'd ought to have to pay a $15 registration. And that if you wanted to put something in, or if you needed a couple, take it out. Also, something I don't know if a lot of people know about, there's a general information room, and it's called the Mirror Room, and it's on this floor. And it's right around the corner between the bathrooms there. And it has maps, eating guides, things to do, places to see, miscellaneous postings. And there will be a very few banquet tickets left in the morning. There will be t-shirts, coffee cups, bumper stickers, necklaces, keychains, etc. for sale again in the morning. I wanted to mention something that I feel is real important because it was the first thing I ever went to in NA outside of Topeka, Kansas. Last year I had the opportunity to go to the World Literature Conference. And for the first time I got to see what serenity and real sobriety was. And the World Literature Conference is the following week after this. And there will also you'll be able to register for that out in the hall tomorrow too. And they really need the help, and I hope I can go down too. I'd just like to thank all the speakers. I'd like to thank Dr. Lauren Phillips. I'd like to thank Gina. I'd like to thank Nona, who found out about 5 minutes before this she was going to chair the meeting. There's a lot of people that didn't show up that were on the program, but it must have been God's will because there's been a lot of willing people that take the places. I'd like to thank Jim. It was really good, and Bernie and Mark and everybody. I'd just like to thank everybody. I love y'all.
When Ron asked me to do this, he said, "It's your meeting." And I was at the first annual Pacific Northwest Conference in Portland. And it was a room like this, and people were at tables. And we all linked up. We made a great big circle, and it was over 1,000 people. And while we're doing that around this room and holding on to each other, I want Gary from Springfield, Missouri, to come up here and lead us in the Lord's Prayer. Pick it up. I used to say a prayer before I got here, and I'm sure many of you said the same prayer.